Next up, we will be working with selectors. How do we target specific elements? And we talked about this a little bit using the tag of the element. So now this is targeting all paragraph elements, but there are other ways to do it. So open the style sheet on line 5. We're going to target all H1 elements. So all you have to do is type in H1 and then declare your code block. This is giving you a warning because it's not doing anything. So it's just gonna warn you. And now we're going to change the color of all H1 blocks or all H1 elements to be maroon. Run that. Now you can see we have changed that color for just that element. There are different paradigms on how to do CSS, and if you're not careful and you're doing it all in one file, it can be really difficult. So we will go into how do we structure all of our files so that it's as easy as possible. But I just must warn you that doing it this method can get very difficult to manage. So then you have a global selector. So this is absolutely everything. This is useful for changing fonts and changing well, actually, you don't really want to change like padding or anything like that. You'd want to change stuff globally so it all looks cohesive. Right now, it looks cohesive because it's all, I'm pretty sure, Times New Roman. I'm like 98% sure that's Times New Roman. But we want to change the font to be something else. For example, Verdana. So now we're going to be changing everything with border red. This is going to look horrible. I do not like this. But this is actually a good way to identify like what is happening and how our elements are changed. Sometimes I like to create really bad CSS and have everything colored looking horrible, just so I can really easily tell what is what. And so you can very easily identify, okay, this image is that size. This whole body is this. This text isn't just up to here, is taking this whole area. So this is a good way to identify how big things are and what is happening. However, obviously you don't want your website to look like this. So now we are going to utilize classes. So classes are a way to basically target multiple elements, and there are different ways of there are different paradigms on how to do it. But now we're going to make a looks like we're going to have a class title. So as you can see here, this H1 tag has an attribute called class where it's equal to title. Oh gosh, they're doing everything with single quotes. I don't like that. Whatever. What's cool about classes is you can have multiple things. So I can do title, description, test, like it doesn't really matter. For right now, we're just going to have title, but you can have multiple classes and have multiple things targeted, which is pretty cool. So on line 11, index.html, there's a thing called class title. Yep, right there. Now in here, we're going to target that element. Classes are targeted with dot or a period, and then whatever the class name is. So dot title. Okay, so now this is identifying anything with the class of title. Notice how this is using double quotes and this is using single quotes. Whatever. Oh, whoops, I just closed that out. Didn't mean to do that. I want to open you up. Thank you. Okay. Now, it's just going to be an empty class or an empty thing. But we're going to change the color of that to teal. So before we run this, let's think about what's going to happen. We have an H1 whose color is maroon. But the title, we have a class of title. Well, gosh dang it, I keep closing out of it. I don't mean to do that. And we're changing the color to teal. So which one is going to take priority? This is a little bit weird because we are changing the same thing to do two different things. So let's run that. Oh, it's teal. Why is that? Why do you think that changing the class to teal was a higher priority than the H1? that's actually a loaded question. It's not. It's all about the order of operations. So if I move this up here, it will be, oh wait, what? It should be maroon. Huh. I guess I am wrong. Yeah. Okay. So I guess classes do have priority. Interesting. I didn't know that. But if I change the style here, equals, let's think, color red. Let's see what happens. If I run that, okay, it's red. So you can see how different things will have higher priority. Evidently there is, it goes class. I thought it was order. Anyway, oh well. So there is an order of operations and you will get more comfortable. However, there is a way around it, and I think we're leading up to that, which is the important tag. Okay, that's later. So now, as I said before, we can have different tags or different classes and change them to be different things. So we can say dot green will have color green and dot bold will be font weight bold. And so an H1 tag with green space bold will be green and bold. Pretty obvious like what's going on there. So that is a really useful paradigm that things like Tailwind is good at, which will basically create a bunch of, basically take all of CSS and turn it into specific classes, and so that each of your elements can be built from the ground up. It's actually quite cool. But anyway, in this HTML, H1, class of title, add a second class called uppercase, and we are going to change it to uppercase. Okay, let's run that. It's not going to do anything until we go up to here and add dot uppercase and run that. So notice how the it's now uppercase and it's also teal. So this is utilizing both of those classes. All right. We can also identify using IDs. And let's see if there's an ID somewhere in here. What's the on the H1, I don't know, ID of article title. Okay. So it wants us to go inside of here, H1 ID equals article title. Okay. We've already put in IDs into our HTML files before with the HTML tutorials. But now we're going to be utilizing that in CSS. So now, going into CSS, we're going to be targeting that. The way you target an ID is using pound, whatever it is. So article title. Okay. And now we want to change this to be font family cursive. So anything with the ID of article title, which IDs should only be used once. You should never have multiple things with the same ID. That is just a good practice. Now, we can see now the font family is cursive. That looks like Comic Sans. Ugh. Oh, that makes me sad. Okay, anyway. So now, we can also identify things with attributes. So this, there are default ones for the tag name, the selector, I'm sorry, the class name and the ID. But now we can target anything with any attribute, including class and ID and all of that stuff. But we can target with any attribute. So let's go into here, and it wants us to add this to our code. Okay. What this will be doing is it will targeting anything with an anchor tag, okay, which is the A, which is a link, right? So probably one of these. And then it's going to be looking anything with the link, href, is, I'm pretty sure, I don't know what that star means. I forget what that means. Actually, let's explain that code. Okay, I don't know what that star means. Is Florence. So if we find here, look for Florence, there we go. Oh, I understand what it means. So with the end of the href being Florence, it's kind of like regex from what I understand. Okay, so it'll be targeting this element and it will be changing it to be light green. So let's run this. There you go. Now that element is changed to being light green. Add a declaration for href Beijing. It's probably down in here. And let's make it light blue. Let's run that. So now Beijing, I did this incorrectly. Oh, I forgot to do that. Whoops. Go away. That. There we go. So now Beijing will be light blue. Finally, the same thing with that and that. So I'm just going to go copy that, paste, copy that, paste, run. So now these three tags will have three different colors. And notice how this is using the href to identify. There is not like, we're not using the dot class name and we're not using the ID. We are utilizing the actual attribute. And you can do that with literally anything. And technically, don't do this, but technically you could say in here, class equals title. Although you don't want to do that because now that is only if the class is only equal to title. And so it's just not a good way to do that. However, technically that is valid CSS. Okay. So now we are looking at pseudo classes. Ah, yes. These are interesting. So basically all of HTML and CSS, HTML and CSS together are Turing complete with user input, technically. So this is a way to utilize CSS to change based on user interaction. So we are going to be, whenever something, I'm pretty sure, yeah. So whenever you hover over something, it's going to change the appearance of it. So add a rule set for that. Okay. So we're going to be looking at all anchor tags. Okay, let's run that. Yep, great. Now we're going to be adding a hover pseudo class. Hover. So anytime we hover over that, it's going to change the color. We're going to add into here. It's going to change the color to be dark orange. Okay, so our original things, so href of Florence, Beijing, and Seoul, I don't know how to pronounce that. Apologies. They're going to still be their own thing, but once you hover over it, it's going to change to dark orange. So if I go over here, it changed. Go over here, changed. Go over here, changed. So I think this is a review. Oh, utilizing multiple things at the same time. I'm pretty sure what's going on here. Oh, I don't know. All right. Okay, so you can type, which can affect whether that's meant to be used over many elements by writing CSS classes. We talked about that while using class many times. IDs are meant to be only used once. We already talked about that as using next license or exercise. IDs override styles and classes. Since IDs override these styles, they should be used sparingly and only on elements. Okay. So there are multiple paradigms with CSS. They are saying, hey, try to use IDs as little as possible in here unless you're really trying to target that element. The thing is, when I'm writing CSS, I just don't use IDs at all because I want to use them in multiple areas. And also Svelte does a really good job of CSS because it's all scoped. But, God, got this itch. But what you should be using are tag names and the classes / pseudo classes. That will allow you to be really flexible with your code and it won't be incredibly targeted. And it can be difficult to manage if you make it too targeted. So to demonstrate classes on multiple elements, indexing, there are 4 H2 elements. Give each one the class of H2 of heading background. Okay, so H2, I'm going to look for all H2 tags. And I'm going to add heading background onto here. Oops, space. Heading background, and class equals heading background. All right, we run that. Great. Now let's give unique style to a single element using the ID. Online, there's an H6. Where's the H6? H6. Control H6. All right. Now we're going to add an ID onto here. ID equals publish time. Run that. So now in our CSS, we're going to be changing all background heading backgrounds to be background color aqua. So heading background. Remember, those were classes. Background color aqua. So now if I run that, all of those should be aqua. And then we're going to add an ID of publish time. Color is gray. Let's run that. So now, where was that? There we go. Great. Since IDs are single use, this now has a unique ID that can't be used again in this document. Great. Let's go to the next thing. Specificity is the order by which browser decides. Okay, this is the problem that I had earlier in this. So basically, there is a priority. It's going to start with the tag, and then it's going to go to the CSS. I'm sorry, the class, and then I'm pretty sure it's the tag. I'm sorry. Then I'm pretty sure it's any other data element or attribute, and then it's the ID. So let's add a class and ID to an existing element. For example, on line 12, let's go to here. Okay, we're going to be doing that. So ID equals author ID, and then class equals author class. So we're going to be experimenting and seeing which is more important. So H5, it wants to just copy all of this code, and it will be, if we comment out this and this, it'll be yellow. If we return this, it'll be pink. And if we return this, it'll be, shut up, it'll be cornflower blue. So if I run this, the author ID, where is our author ID? Where are we? Here we are. There we go. It's a bluish color. Okay. But anything else that is an H5 is yellow. As you can barely see here, that is yellow. By the way, this CSS kind of gets into color theory and stuff. You should learn basics of how contrast works and stuff like that, because that is completely unreadable. So, next. Now we can have chaining, and so we can have certain tags with specific classes. So let's use chaining to select on the H2 element and destination. So we do, if something has H2 and destination, it'll be font family Tahoma. Okay. So anything that is a H2 element with a destination class will be that thing. So that is that, and everything that, except for this, you can see how this is a different font from here, because this does not have the destination class. But we defined H2, I'm pretty sure, above, or something above, as being blue, like the teal. I keep closing this freaking file. Okay, something is blue. Oh, dot title. So this has a dot title, but this, it doesn't have a dot destination or an H2. I don't know which. All right. Great. And then we can have different, we can have nested elements. So if you have an element here with a class of main list, any child element or anything with a tag of li that is inside of that element doesn't have to be shallow. Like, it doesn't have to be immediately in. It can be the child of a child of a child of a child. I think. Sentence by adding a line of space as a final selector, selecting elements more specific. All right, I'm pretty sure that's the case. So any list element or list item tag inside of the main list class will have a specific style. So let's look at that. And I'm going to verify that I was correct with what I said. So an index.html, each destination has element, h5 element with the text top actions. They're hard to read since they turned yellow. Let's fix that. So let's go to style.css. And we're going to target only the h5 descendants of the dot description. Dot description h5. Okay. So let's run that, and we're going to change the color to blue violet. Run. Okay. So blue violet is that thing. So we can look inside of our paragraph tag. Where's our paragraph tag? Actually, I'm going to look for H. Is it H5 or 6? H5. Okay, so this is a class of description, and here's an H5. I'm going to test and see if this H5 will work inside of the LI. So let's run that. Yep. Okay, I was right. So anything that is if it's even like a child of a child of a child of a child of a child, it's still going to change based on whatever this CSS says. Okay, so as long as it is inside of that element, it will change according to that rule. All right, let's go to next. And then changing in specificity. Okay, so this is stating the priority. Which one is going to be more higher priority? Either the paragraph or the descendant. Which one is going to have priority? Okay, so to show, we're going to add an H4, select the H4 elements listed inside of LI. Okay. Okay, so if I go H4 LI, that is what that is selecting. It is looking for all list elements. I'm sorry. It is looking for all LI H4. It is looking for all H4 elements inside of list item. Okay, so color gold. So now let's look at the HTML list item. Where is an H4? Here we are. Okay, so shut up. List item H4. All of these should turn gold. So let's run that. There we go. Those are gold. Fantastic. So now we're going to just target the H4 type. H4 color Dodger blue. Let's see what happens. They are all gold still. So this has higher priority. Generally, it's just a good idea to write your CSS so that there really isn't priority. You don't have to deal with that issue. And there are frameworks out there already that you don't have to deal with this. And I was wrong originally here because I didn't really deal with that very much because I've been using a separate framework. It's not a framework. I've been using something separate to help me with CSS because it can get complicated and convoluted. Shut up very easily. So we can also have multiple selectors. So anything that is an H1 or a menu. So this, where is it? Where was the multiple things? Okay, so this is anything with an anchor tag and, I hate that thing so much, anchor tag and with an href of Florence with at the end of it. This is the and statement. This is the or statement. So anything with an H5 or an LI, I hate that they say I, and. So H5 or LI, we want the font family to be monospace. Okay, so now notice how all of those are monospace, and Let's find some others that are monospace. I think that's it. Yep, there's a monospace one. Okay, so this is the and. Yeah, that's the and. This is the or. Okay, so now we're going to review. You can select by type, class, ID, and attribute. They are all elements can be selected with the universal selector. Elements can have different states in the pseudo class selector, which is this like hover thing. So that's the user interaction. Multiple CSS can be applied to one element. So this H1 and the title thing. And then we have to deal with priority. Classes are reusable, but IDs can only be used once. Generally, it's a bad idea to use IDs. I'd highly recommend you avoid them at all costs, because if you are writing a massive code base and you have an ID that you completely forgot about and it's still there, you're going to really struggle. So IDs are more specific than classes and more specific than type. I think they mean tag here. That means ID will override styles from a class. Classes will override any styles from a type. And anything that is specific, like inline on the element, if I say style equals whatever, that takes highest priority. I'm barely certain. Multiple selectors can be chained together, like h2.description. Nested elements, which is .description h5. Okay, so notice you have to have a space here to say anything that is an h5 inside of the .description. And then you can have multiple unrelated selectors as an or statement right there. Right?